Alright, so today I want to share an experience with you that I've never really had before since I've been keeping snakes, and that is I have a reticulated python that is in a crazed feeding frenzy, and that is Sonny, my lavender albino. He's part super dwarf and part dwarf. He's a reticulated python. Now, I've been pairing him up with Lucy for the last couple of years, and they haven't laid eggs, and this year I'm hoping they have enough age on them, enough size. I've been feeding them pretty heavy this last month, trying to get them up to size so they can go on an extended fast. They usually fast when I start pairing them up into the breeding season. As a matter of fact, Sonny fasted for about 6 months and he got really super skinny. As you can almost see his spine sticking out. I was offering him food every single week and he just refused. And now he's switched and that feeding mode is turned on almost permanently. It's almost scary to open the tub. It is pretty incredible. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna actually feed both of these snakes, and I'm gonna show you the challenges that I'm having with my reticulated pythons. Usually I don't do feeding videos, but I kind of wanted to do this kind of as an educational. If you're thinking about getting into retics, especially if you're pairing the males and the females on a regular basis, let me tell you, they go into this crazed feeding mode, and that is part of keeping a reticulated python. It's just part of the game with retics. Sometimes you just have to deal with it. And let me tell you, dealing with ball pythons is so much easier than retics. Even dealing with kind of the stubbornness of the feeding in ball pythons is a lot easier. Retics are definitely a challenge. And I would say that between the feeding mode, I'd say that's probably the biggest, scariest part of having retics is when they go into the feeding mode. Usually right before you start pairing them up, they get really crazy when it comes to food. And the other probably the most challenging part of retics is trying to chase the enclosure size. So for example, Sonny has been in a boa tub pretty much for the last year, maybe year and a half, and he's getting to the point where he's pretty much outgrown this boa tub. And I feed him in the boa tub, and the other thing is, not only is he in a crazed feeding mode, when he wraps up around that rat, he actually doesn't really fit in the boa tub in most cases. So I'm trying to like push him and get him back in the tub. And actually what I'm gonna do is I actually have a reptile show in about a week and a half, and I'm gonna sell some hatchlings at that show. I'm gonna use some of that money to invest in a bigger enclosure for Sonny and get him into something bigger. Probably put him out on my pool table with Lucy so they're both in bigger enclosures out there. But for now, I want to show you how I feed them in this tub. I'm going to feed both these snakes, show you the challenges. Hopefully I won't get bit, and hopefully it won't be too scary. I mean, these snakes are really incredibly aggressive right now when it comes to food. And I'd say that's probably the number one scariest part of owning a retic. And let me tell you, I really love the big snakes. They pretty much call them gentle giants, and for the most part they are, until they're coming up on the breeding season and they go in that crazed feeding mode. So I'm gonna go over and let's feed some snakes and let's check out Sonny. He is absolutely insane. Alright, so I actually have 2 boa tubs here. Sonny is in the bottom tub. This top tub is pretty much where I keep my spare bedding. I just use the coconut husk. I expand it in here, and then I just use it as I need it to replace some of the substrate in the tubs and just kind of keep it as a spare. The problem I found with this tub, take a look at this. This is a really kind of a sharp spot right here on the tub I didn't even realize that this was that sharp until Sonny actually came out of the corner here, grabbed a rat, and then wrapped around it. And when he was wrapping around it, this actually cut him on the side and actually got like a wound on the side, which is pretty unfortunate. So I'm actually going to get a little bit of iodine and spray and try to spray his wound that he actually got on one of the last rats. And the other thing is, when I opened this tub, the last time I opened it, when actually I was feeding him, I opened it just a little bit and I threw the rat in there, and he came flying out and he grabbed the side of the tub right here and he hung on for dear life. It was crazy. And then he let go after about 30 seconds and he started coming out towards me. I was like kind of freaking out. So I got my hook and I tried to get him back in with my hook. He actually bit my hook and he was holding onto it in his mouth, and he's actually laying on the floor with my hook in his mouth. He wouldn't let go for like 2 minutes. I didn't want to move my hook because I was afraid I was going to break one of his teeth. But let me tell you, the last time I fed him, he was absolutely absolutely insane. So what I'm gonna do now is, usually when I go in, I try to replace the water, you know, spot clean and do everything. It's funny, if you can actually get them to grab the rodent and wrap around it, they're almost like paralyzed for a few minutes. And you can go in and change the water and spot clean, do the bedding while they actually have the rat. But the trick is to actually get them in the tub with the rat, with, you know, without actually getting too crazy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get everything ready, my water, my sprinkling can and everything, and then we'll go ahead and feed this boy. Alright, so here is my setup that I'm going to use. First of all, I have some really heavy-duty mechanics gloves. Hopefully I won't get to take a bite. I've never actually taken a bite from a retic, but you never can be too careful. You always want to wear some gloves if possible, especially when they're in a crazed feeding mode. And then I have a really long snake hook. I'm actually going to use this to open the tub, so I'm really not by the snake too close when I open it. Then I have a little bit of iodine. I'm going to spray it on his little cut that he got from the tub. Have some water and paper towel. I'm going to change his water. I have a little bit of water in my sprinkling can. I'm going to rehydrate the substrate a little bit, and then I have my rat all prepared. I raise my own rats in all these racks, and I euthanize with CO2, and that is my setup. Hopefully this will go smoothly and nothing will go crazy. So I'm going to set this camera up on a tripod, and let's try to feed the snake and do a little spot cleaning. Alright, so here goes nothing. We'll see how this actually goes here. He'll probably be quite crazy flying out of this tub. We'll see here. Oh, he's actually doing pretty good. Not quite as crazy as yesterday. It's kind of interesting. He's let's see here. I was wondering if he's kind of freaking out from this light. That's really interesting that the snake is kind of freaking out. Now he's going to prove me wrong. Yesterday he was going crazy. Look at that. Now he's like just kind of chilled out. Wow, that is different. Turning the light on and off a little bit. Wow, that is interesting. From one extreme to the other. Huh. Well, there you have it. Not really what I expected. Wow. That is pretty crazy. I'm still going to do a little spot cleaning here. So I got you all fired up for nothing. That's a little crazy. Whoa, he's kind of in defensive mode. All right, buddy. Oh, oh, he is in defensive mode. All right, wow. That is not what I expected. I've never seen him in defensive mode like that either before. That is interesting. Alright, so I'm going to give this rat to Lucy here. Lucy is definitely a lot bigger than Sonny. She is about 80 pounds, probably about twice what Sonny weighs. And I'm thinking Sonny may be in a bad mood because he was freaking out yesterday. I'm thinking maybe he hurt himself when he was like going crazy. Maybe he hurt himself on the mouth when he was actually biting my hook and the tub and everything. Unfortunately, I think he is in a bad mood. Probably won't take another rat until I actually pair him up, and I'll probably pair him up. The hard part's actually going to get him out in that really kind of aggressive, grumpy mood and get him in here with Lucy. So Lucy's actually in this enclosure out here on my pool table. I'm actually going to give that rat to Lucy. You can tell I've been feeding her pretty heavy. She's been eating quite a few rats. She's getting really plump. I'll probably give her this one last rat before we pair her up. I'm gonna put this camera on the tripod and let's give Lucy another rat. Alright, so I actually have Lucy here under lock and key, and I usually keep her locked up until it's feeding time or until I actually clean her enclosure. And what I like to do is I like to come over here and kind of get her away from the other end, kind of get her attention down here a little bit. That's what I really like about these big enclosures, is I can actually bring her down here. And then I like to feed her on this cardboard over here so she doesn't get a mouthful of substrate over here. And then I can kind of squeeze it in over here without worrying about, hopefully worrying about. I actually like to get to the point where she can see it, instead of, it doesn't really matter if I just lay it here, she's fine. I actually like to have her actually see me lay it right there. And then she definitely knows it is there. And actually, if I kind of just throw it in there, she gets really, really super crazy. Sometimes she'll jump on it and coil up, which I really don't like. Sometimes she'll get a mouth of substrate. And that's kind of why I have a piece of cardboard over on the right, so she doesn't get the substrate in her mouth. And I actually went to this big, huge water dish in the back. It actually holds 3 gallons of water. It's really awesome. Keeps the substrate from actually getting into her water dish. And I really don't have to change it more than once a week, which is pretty awesome. So that is pretty much it. She's kind of a finicky eater. Sometimes when you first start feeding her, she is super aggressive and she'll jump and coil at the rats. But then, you know, after she gets quite a few rats in there, she really slows down. You can definitely tell she's getting pretty full. And this is probably the perfect time to start breeding, because you definitely want them full of rats in order to actually breed them. You can tell she's kind of checking out that rat a little bit. And it's funny, you feed her a bunch of rats back after back after back, and she becomes really real gentle eating those rats. It is really kind of interesting how she gets real gentle actually eating them. So that is quite a bit of difference between Sonny and Lucy. And unfortunately, it looks like Sonny actually probably got injured during the last feeding craze that he was in. It was pretty scary yesterday, let me tell you. And this weekend, I'm definitely going to pair him up. It should be interesting trying to get Sonny out. He's kind of beat up. I'm thinking his mouth is hurting a little bit, and he's got that cut on his side from the corner of the tub. So I'm thinking it might be kind of tricky actually moving him over here without actually taking a bite. That's going to be the hard part. I might have to gear up in my coveralls or something to actually bring him over and put him in this enclosure. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Harry Roman asks, am I going to Tinley Park this weekend? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, that is Tinley Park, Illinois, the NARBC, the North American Reptile Breeders Conference. Pretty much the best reptile show in all of the United States. I've actually been there a couple times, bought a few snakes there, and you always see all the famous reptile breeders there. It's a pretty awesome show. A lot of people show up. It's always really packed. A lot of vendors too. You have a pretty incredible selection of different snakes to choose from, as well as all other reptiles and insects and just pretty much everything you can imagine. It's a really awesome show. And unfortunately, I won't be able to actually attend that show this weekend. If I was to drive out there, it's a 16-hour trip each way going back and forth from Colorado to Tinley Park. And if I fly out there, you really can't bring snakes on the plane. But as a matter of fact, I actually have a reptile show coming up, the Denver Repticon, in just a week and a half. I will be there with all my snakes. I'll have an 8-foot table, probably with about 60, 65 snakes. Hope to see you there. That will be a pretty awesome show. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.